Hello there, and welcome back to my channel. So in the past, I've done several videos talking about Doomcock, debunking a lot of his narratives that he likes to make up and pretend are real. But now I think it's time to move on to other members of the fandom menace that have just as equally silly things to say that are fairly easy to debunk. And I just recently came across this one video from Geeks and Gamers where Jeremy had a lot to say about his opinion on how he feels the Kenobi series went, and a lot of it I took issue with, and I just want to go through it bit by bit and explain to you why I think what he says is very, very incredibly silly. So let's get to it.
Episode 6 of Kenobi, the season finale. We are here. We're going to talk spoilers. I'm just going to come out and say it. No, I didn't like the episode. The episode was crap, but it's exactly what we expected it.
So right away, one of the first things that he has to say is that he expected it to be bad. So why would you even bother watching it? In fact, I'm pretty sure this is the same guy who at one point said that he's just done with Disney Star Wars, and it's just Disney and Lucasfilm, they've ruined Star Wars and it's just so horrible. So why would you even bother investing time in watching a show that you outright acknowledge that you knew was going to be bad? Maybe you were willing to give it its fair shot. I'm willing to give that to the guy. It seems like you went in with poor expectations and you got what you asked for, especially considering this guy was already making videos about how butthurt he was with the whole Moses Ingram controversy that he walked himself into, but again, I'm going to let that one go. Let's keep going.
To be, because that is what Disney Star Wars is. And we start out with Reva, the bestest ever. She's the best. No one can question that, and if you do, you are a racist, you are a sexist, and they will shame you on social media for it.
No. Literally no one except you said that, Jeremy. Literally Disney and Lucasfilm and Star Wars, they literally just commented on the people sending her actually toxic and racist messages, and you associated yourself with that by protesting too much and somehow conflating that them asking stop sending toxic and racist comments to our actor represented you. So, false. Bad Jeremy.
So don't question how she got to Tatooine. Don't question it. She's taken 2 lightsaber shots. Vader left her for dead, and of course we knew exactly what was going to happen in that moment, and of course that's exactly what happened. She got up and magically she's now in Tatooine. How did that happen? I don't know, and you better not question it.
What's the issue with her surviving again? Like, yeah, she got stabbed. I think she only was stabbed once, though. Which is weird, because you complain about her getting stabbed and surviving, yet the Grand Inquisitor gets stabbed and he survives. Like, does it not dawn on these people that people can survive different... Like, I know people, like, point to Qui-Gon getting stabbed and him dying. Qui-Gon is not a representation of everyone. Lots of people can survive different things. Some people get shot in the arm and they die instantaneously somehow, and other people can get their entire bodies blown apart and they still somehow survive. I feel like it comes down to personal will. And in terms for Star Wars, literally the Grand Inquisitor says, revenge is a great motivator to live. So, come on.
We also got the rematch of Obi-Wan Kenobi and Darth Vader for the 12th time, it seems like now.
4th, if my count is correct. Once in the prequels, twice in the Kenobi series, and then the Death Star. And you know, that's something that's always irked me with the fandom menace. They always have to over-exaggerate about their points, and they like focus on making a valid point and not try and just overhype something to make it sound worse than what it actually is. Saying it's like, oh, this is like the 12th time, sounds way worse than, oh, this is like the 4th time they fought, and it's like spread across a few decades. Anakin's first fight with Obi-Wan on Mustafar to the 2 times he fights in the Kenobi series is like a decade apart, and from those fights there, it's like another decade away from his fight on the Death Star. So what are you bitching about, dude?
Because who cares about continuity? And in this particular fight, they ripped off themselves. That's right, Disney Star Wars has ruined so much that they are now ripping off themselves.
What you would call ripping off, I would call paying homage to. or just doing a callback, things that Star Wars has typically done a lot of consistently throughout all of Star Wars.
That's how far they've fallen. Because in Rebels, a show that I very much like.
Oh, shocker, you actually like something. That's a surprise.
Even though it's not as good as the Clone Wars, I did like Rebels. In that show, you had a moment with Ahsoka and you had Vader, and they had a fight. And in that fight, Ahsoka with her lightsaber knocks off a part of Darth Vader's mask. It's a really great moment. It's a really iconic moment, and I love that moment. It's awesome.
Why don't you talk about that? You know, make more videos talking about that. I would love to see you talk about what you genuinely love about Star Wars, and just avoid talking, like, forcing in all this, like, pandering bullshit that you seem to like to do. Just talk about what you love, dude. That's all.
And you get to see Anakin's eye, and it's really cool. They literally did the same thing in this episode. They ripped off themselves. This is how bad Disney Star Wars is. I guess we're just gonna get a Vader fight with a new apprentice every couple of series and every couple of movies, because they can't create anything.
If you're really going to look me in the eye and tell me this scene here with Obi-Wan and Vader is somehow a bad thing, why do your viewers take you seriously again?
Because they're so focused on giving us garbage identity politics and forced diversity characters.
Where do you crowbar that in from exactly? Oh, just because a black person, like, you know, black people exist, right? So when they're introduced into a movie, I'm just suggesting maybe it's not forced diversity. It's not identity politics. It's just a character they want to have in the movie. Kind of like, you know, Lando Calrissian.
Like Reva, so that they've put us to a point where they can't develop anything. So we're just going to have to continue to tell you the same fucking story with Darth Vader over and over again. So let's just keep having Vader in movies and television shows or whatever, so we can have half of his face slashed off for his mask, so we can see Anakin Skywalker, and it can be a great moment.
I'm sorry, how many TV shows and movies have they made of Darth Vader where he's hunting Obi-Wan and he's involving himself with the Inquisitors? It seems like there's only like one other source of information that comes from, and that's Rebels. And all of this is just building more context with this character and the history and the time period between the prequels and the original trilogy. And for some reason, you're making that out like it's a bad thing. Don't be surprised if I continue to be lost in what exactly it is you're bitching about. So, like, one of the best villains ever, and you're complaining that they're featuring him more.
That's essentially what we're doing now. They're ripping off themselves. My God, how bad are the people at Lucasfilm right now? How bad is the creativity there?
Is it really ripping yourself off when it's yourself? This seems like a very complicated way of just saying, just paying homage to something.
Of course, until we want to focus on Leia, because the Force is in fact female.
Okay, so wow, instantaneously I just heard that, and I already, like, way to just expose yourself as just a bullshit machine. He brings up the whole Force is female controversy again as one of... oh, it looks like you're ripping off yourself because you're referencing something you already talked about before. Little does he apparently know that with a very quick and simple Google search, the whole Force is female controversy had really nothing to do with Star Wars, but he's still applying it here like it is, like it does. And I'll post up the reference for what I'm talking about right here, but essentially what this boils down to for him when he says something like that is he is either so incompetent that he can't be bothered to do a very simple fact check on the things that he's saying, or he deliberately knows that what he's saying is bullshit and he's telling it to you anyway. There's no ignorance to be had anymore. We have all the context we need. What he says with the whole Force is female thing is bullshit. He just bullshitted you straight to your faces, and he's just tossing it in because he knows he can get away with it because his viewers don't question what he has to say.
So anyway, we go back to Reva, and Reva is, of course, with her paper cut, because that's essentially what it seems like. She just has a paper cut now.
And again, over-exaggeration again, when this Darksider is having difficulty fighting two farmers by herself with lightsaber and force abilities. Like, they almost go toe-to-toe with her in that final fight at Owen's farm. So, yeah, she wins barely, and let's be honest, she's kind of wiped out.
And so she's continuing to track down Luke, and of course she does track down Luke, and of course she has the moment to end Luke Skywalker, and she, in this wonderful moment, she finally sees the light, just like Iden, a character that was in...
That seems like a very oddly specific complaint. And you know, I'm really trying to figure out why he's taking an issue with that, of a villainous type character having a change of heart. The only real thing I can think of, and it requires me to think like an asshole, is he's butthurt because these are characters of color that are having a redemption arc, and what, not white people? Tell me again, it's not about race.
But of course she had a change of heart somewhere along the way, because she couldn't be bad forever. And that's exactly what we saw with Reva. Reva was never going to be bad for the entire time. There was going to be a justifiable reason why she was with the Empire. There was going to be a justifiable reason for why she was doing the things she did. But when it was all said and done, we were going to be left with a lasting memory of Reva, showing that she has good in her. And that's exactly what we saw. So now, because of Reva's good-heartedness, or her good-hearted nature, and her wonderful spirit, she's the...
That's a lot like in that scene where Vader sacrifices himself to save Luke, and someone just starts pearl clutching and takes such a breathy accent to his voice and talks about, thanks to Vader. Thanks to Vader's sacrifice. Now we have that to focus on as the reason why Luke Skywalker lives. The tragedy. Like, Luke couldn't have just beat this person by himself and be the dominant winning power the whole way through. Just, like, what are you doing? What are you talking about, dude? I would hate to just live my life being this mad all the time.
She had the power to destroy Luke Skywalker. Can anyone tell me what the point of Reva was in this series? Like, honestly, eliminate the forced diversity, eliminate the identity politics. Was in this series? Like, honestly, eliminate the forced diversity, eliminate the identity politics.
Things that only exist because you crowbar them into the conversation, mind you. But okay, we'll ignore those things that I literally never had an issue with, because I guess I don't see things in those weird political glasses that you seem to be wearing all the time.
And tell me what Reva's character did in this series to benefit anything within Star Wars. I can go ahead and give you the answer. There is no reason. Reva's character was completely 100% irrelevant. There's no reason for her to exist in any capacity whatsoever other than to push identity politics.
False. False across the board. So I'm going to take a minute. I'm going to put this down. I'm going to take a minute to explain to you exactly why that is the biggest load of garbage in this entire video. And I'm going to speak directly to Jeremy on this one, and anyone who thinks like he does or just parrots what he has to say. You see, Jeremy, what you might not know is in Star Wars, and we'll just use the original trilogy as our context for this, you have different types of characters. You have minor characters. These are characters that show up, you know, very seldomly in the movie. They might show up once or twice, but ultimately they're out of the movie more than they're in the movie. They're inconsequential background characters. You have slightly more important characters that are periodically in the movie, but again, they still fall into that realm of they're out of the movie more than they're in the movie, or they're just sporadically placed in and they don't have that much impact. Then you have other characters that kind of fall into the category of main character status. And these are people like the protagonist, the antagonist, and people who are in the movie more than they're out of the movie. That's what can grant them the rank of main character status, right? And what you might not know is for characters like these, like say Han Solo, when you're watching these movies, they don't always follow Luke Skywalker from start to finish. They actually jump around to these other main character types to develop them. Hence why Han goes from the rugged asshole type in the first film to somewhat of a more honorable man, having spent time with genuinely good people and not the rugged asshole smuggler bounty hunter types that are only out looking for themselves. And it's also because if you don't have these detracting moments that focus on these other side primary characters, it leaves the film feeling a little bit bland and empty, because it wouldn't impact us as much if Luke, while training on Dagobah, without any context of what's happening with Han and Leia, suddenly senses that they're in danger. Like, we wouldn't understand the gravity of the situation if we hadn't followed those characters on their little side story to understand that they were just captured by Darth Vader and is being tortured by him, which gives us an idea of the gravity of the situation, gives us context into that situation. Another part, and as to why they would focus on these side characters, on these other characters that aren't the main focus, not supposed to be the main focus, is because stories like this, stories like Star Wars, surprisingly aren't just about flashy space battles and laser sword fights, which is weird, because if that's really just what you're, what you think is what Star Wars is all about, literally everything that's been made by Disney since they purchased Star Wars has had that in spades. So again, I don't know what you're bitching about. But back to the point at hand, these stories also try to impart wisdom. They also try to impart lessons and words of wisdom into their stories. And even in these small little sectional, little mini sub-story arcs with these side characters. So to answer your question, what is the purpose of Reva? Her purpose is showing the story of someone who's hell-bent on revenge. Her purpose is to show that when you pursue the goal of revenge, you can very easily become the person you're trying to destroy. Everything Reva does in the Kenobi series is to explain to you what her purpose is, what she's trying to accomplish. She was a Padawan in the Jedi Order during Order 66. She saw Anakin murder the other students and her friends. And from that point forward, she was hell-bent on trying to get revenge against him. That's why she's so determined to try and become the Grand Inquisitor, because she's trying to get close to Vader so she can kill him. It's only after she finally fights him and loses horribly that she realizes she never had a chance in hell on getting proper revenge against him directly. But then she finds, oh, there's a boy that's related to Skywalker, related to Anakin Skywalker, the person I want revenge against. I might not be able to get revenge against Vader specifically, directly, but I can take something away from him. And that's why she focuses her revenge on Luke Skywalker, trying to kill Luke Skywalker, because she's trying to make Vader hurt in some way, shape, or form, to make him feel the same kind of loss and suffering that he inflicted on her. And it's all built for Obi-Wan to come in and talk her down and get her to see reason, see rational sense, and bring her back to the light. So that's her story. So the fact that you can't even see that because you're so clouded with your forced political bullshit that you slander into every video you make, it's not at all surprising that you think this character doesn't amount to anything in these stories. You're not paying attention, Jack.
That's why people are so tired of this. That's why people are so fed up with this. It has nothing to do with the color of her skin. It has nothing to do with anything other than these companies, and in particular Lucasfilm, feel like they have to push identity politics, and they are willing to sacrifice the story in order to get there.
Where is your proof? That's something I've always really wanted to know. Like, where do you get your proof for this? How do you go from innocently just having a person of color in a film and it being identity politics or forced diversity? Where's the cutoff line? Let me guess. It's if they're Republican or not, right?
And another character that should not have been centrally focused in this series was Leia. There was no reason for Leia to be focused in on this series. If you take Leia and if you take Reva out of this series, and if you add people that actually know what they're doing and care about Star Wars and care about continuity and care about lore and can actually create some new stories, then hey, that's great. There you go. But that's not what we have here.
When he says add people that actually care, yada, 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 all the other bullshit he has to say. Let me guess. Straight white men. Tell me I'm wrong. Which is funny because they tried doing that. They tried doing that with the sequels. They tried doing that with The Last Jedi. And then people like you came along and completely ripped them a new asshole for even attempting to try and tell a different story, try and take characters in a different direction, trying to do something new. I'm starting to feel like there's no pleasing you. Mention, we've gotten lots of context for Luke's growing up into becoming the Luke Skywalker that we all know, and even into the sequel trilogy, whether if you want to acknowledge that as the real Luke or not, I don't care. But we've gotten lots of context around his character. We've gotten next to none about Leia's growing up and her childhood. And who's to even say at some point we're not going to get a child-focused Luke Skywalker at some point, especially when you consider the fact that there's still, there's a possibility we could be getting a Kenobi Season 2. I would personally love to see more regarding around Luke's upbringing and seeing the kind of things that he went through as a kid, making him into the genuinely good person that he became, especially with someone like Uncle Owen at the helm, teaching him like these kind of values. I would love that kind of stuff. Just more of Uncle Owen, really. Like, frankly, I want an Uncle Owen series far more than I want a young little Luke series. I gotta be honest with you. That guy is a boss.
And now, that entire line in A New Hope feels completely stupid, completely dumb. There's moments in Revenge of the Sith that are going to feel completely dumb and completely irrelevant as well, because that's what this series has done. The writing was so bad, and the moments were so cringe in this episode. But
so that's something that, you know, aside from the over-exaggerations, these kind of channels, they also seem to like to be as vague as humanly possible. What do you mean, Jeremy, when you say there's some cringy moments and there's whatever bullshit that you're trying to peddle? I try and do my part to give you crystal clear examples of things that I take issue with every single time. But for some reason, you can't be bothered.
There was no reason for the focus to be on Leia, who's the smartest 10-year-old in the history of the world.
You know, this is hilarious because I thought Doomcock was bad. And, you know, maybe it's because I just thought he would, you know, listening to someone who's just so cartoonishly over the top and cringy, it just makes me feel, it made me feel like, oh, okay, well, this guy is clearly the exaggerated version of what the Phantom Menace has to say and think. But then you have someone like this. He at least looks like a dude I would probably hang out with. And he sounds sensible at times because he speaks fairly clearly and he tries to articulate his words very well and he uses, you know, very intelligent words. But then he says things like this and it just shines right through all of that to expose the kind of person he actually is, because smartest 10-year-old ever? Okay, so Leia as a 10-year-old child being forced to be involved with all this political stuff with her family, be forced to attend political gatherings, things like that, which makes her witty. Smartest 10-year-old to ever exist. Anakin, who is a 9-year-old slave that builds a droid and a pod racer from scrap, tries to create a device that can deactivate the bomb implants in him and his mom so that they can escape, and then attends a death race at the minimum 2 times, before piloting a ship that he has never seen before in his life into blowing up a space station. Got nothing to say about that, apparently. Which I find rather suspicious, given that he is just a white boy. Oh, Anakin's force sensitive, so that's why he's so skilled in all these things. Guess what? Leia's force sensitive too, so...
All comes down to it was focused on Leia and Reba. Yeah, you had the Vader fight with Obi-Wan Kenobi, which, again, if you want to look at the fight in isolation, I can see why you might think that there was a little bit of coolness here or coolness there.
Oh, see, focus on that. Start your opinion off with, you know, I didn't like it, I didn't enjoy it. You know, if you have actual gives that you're willing to give, if there's actually gives of credit that you're actually willing to give them. Summarize things clearly, but don't fall into this bullshit about politics and forced diversity and identity politics. It's all so incredibly vague, and it doesn't mean a damn thing to me unless you actually explain, unless you actually go into detail. And so far, you've given me nothing in terms of proof that anything that you've said in regards to those forced politics is true. If you can provide anything in terms of proof that says, oh yeah, Disney specifically hired Moses Ingram specifically because she's black, because they just wanted to have a black character, and they literally told Lucasfilm, like, don't bother making a character, don't bother investing like any time in developing her or like explaining who she is, it doesn't matter, we only want her in there because she's black. I could see your point. I could concede that, but you don't ever. Strange.
And it's just crazy. And yeah, I couldn't even have an emotional attachment to what happened with Obi-Wan Kenobi and Vader / Anakin because I've already seen it. I've seen it in Rebels. Why the fuck would I care that you're literally telling me the same exact story that you told me in Rebels now? All because you're just trying to do everything you can to go back to this well because you don't have any creativity whatsoever. It's bad. It's very, very bad.
You didn't have an emotional attachment to a series that you were already butthurt about before you even went into watching it? Because Disney prepped one of their actors for the hostile outrage that she was going to most likely receive, received it, came to her defense, and then you associated yourself with those toxic people? I've said everything I would say to this before. I just don't want to be repetitive like this guy. Now, for someone who just thinks it's so bad, clearly Disney's not listening to you. Lucasfilm isn't listening to you. Hell, they're staunchly against you, apparently, by your own actions and words. I guess I just don't know why you would still even try and pretend like you're going to ever get what you want.
Cool in isolation. But when you're looking at the entire package that was presented within this series and overall with Disney Star Wars, it just doesn't have the impact that I wished it would have with me. And I think it's not going to have the impact with many others, although I think it will have a lot of impact with, you know, a large segment of the fans.
See, you have everything in this video to make a good quality video. You have your opinion at the start. You have some gives here and there, and you have the acknowledgement that it doesn't satisfy you, it doesn't satisfy other members, other people that would agree with you, but you also acknowledge that it does reach out to other people. It does satisfy other people. It does connect with other people, at the very least. So this guy has everything he needs to make something that is positive, to make something that is, well, even if it's not necessarily positive, it's still competently and respectfully minded. But he chooses to just crowbar in all of this other nonsense that either is just, it contradicts itself, or it's just logically inconsistent across the board. Like, this is someone that you think is like a quality content creator, just someone who constantly repeats himself over and over and over again, and asking the same question and just being mad. I don't know, I feel like I'd get bored of listening to a guy like this real quick, but You know, if you want to be mad, this is a very good YouTuber to watch. The issue is, if you want to be mad, I have no reason to respect why you're mad. Because it's not genuine. You're forcing yourself to be mad. Alright, well, that just seems to be it. The guy doesn't have anything new to say. He just wants to repeat himself. Watching someone who's just so determined to be mad, so determined to be angry, and promote these poorly thought of excuses as to why he's mad, I could give you a number of reasons why I feel like the Kenobi series isn't the best it could possibly be. I'm not going to make videos like that right now because of specifically people like him who flood the internet with this kind of nonsense that gets people of my side of the fandom very angry and upset and sensitive to hearing criticisms without associating it with these kinds of people. And at some point, I really genuinely will talk about what my issues are with Disney Star Wars, but it's not going to be right now. Maybe in the future. Continuously listening to people like this, but for YouTubers like this, if you stay in an environment that is constantly telling you negativity, it poisons your mind and it breeds an unhealthy mind. And the only way to escape it is to let it go. I hope you consider it, for your sake and the fandom's. May the Force be with you.